You're scrolling through a dozen recliners online, trying to picture which one will actually fit into that cramped corner of your apartment or the tiny living area of your RV, and you're hoping you won't end up with a massive piece of furniture that eats up space or a motor that quits after a few months. You want something that feels solid enough to trust, that's simple to use day after day, and that gives you a real bang for the buck, not just a glossy brochure full of specs you'll never notice. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The biggest hesitation most buyers have with power recliners is the fear of hidden trade-offs. A motorized seat can sound convenient, but if the wiring is flimsy or the chair takes forever to adjust, the convenience turns into frustration. And in a small space, a bulky frame can make the whole room feel closed in, while a cheap-looking faux leather might start peeling after a few months of use. Those are the exact worries I ran through before I decided to take a closer look at this electric leather recliner. First off, let's talk about the space-saving claim. The chair's dimensions are deliberately compact. It's roughly the size of a standard armchair, but the backrest folds flat into the seat when you press the button. In my own living room, that means I can slide it right up against a bookshelf without it jutting out into the walkway. For anyone living in a studio apartment or an RV where every inch counts, that flatten-out feature is a genuine lifesaver. I tested it by setting it up next to a narrow hallway and, after a few minutes of adjusting the recline, the chair slipped back into its low profile without hitting the wall. That kind of flexibility is rarely advertised in the spec sheet but makes a huge difference when you're trying to keep traffic flow smooth. Now, the power recline mechanism itself. This model uses a simple push-button control on the armrest that lets you move from upright to fully reclined in about 8 seconds. I tried it while watching a movie, and the transition was quiet enough that the sound didn't bleed into the audio. The motor has enough torque to hold a 250-pound user without sagging, which means you won't be stuck halfway when you try to lean back after a long day. The downside? Because the chair relies on a built-in battery-powered motor, you do need to keep it plugged into a wall outlet for continuous use. In an RV that runs on limited power, you'll have to plan where the outlet sits, otherwise you could end up with a recliner that won't work when you're parked off-grid. The adjustable power headrest is another practical element. It slides up and down with a separate button, letting you line up the headrest exactly where you need it for neck support. I used it during a marathon of video chat calls and found that I could keep my chin from jutting forward, which reduced the strain I usually feel after hours of looking at a screen. The headrest also folds forward when you want to use the chair as a regular seat, so you don't have a protruding piece in the way when you're just reading a book. One feature that caught my eye was the integrated USB charging ports. They're positioned on the right armrest, and each port delivers a solid 5V2A, enough to charge a phone or a tablet in a couple of hours. In real life, I plugged my phone in while I was reclining, and it stayed warm enough to keep the battery level steady without any overheating. For anyone who spends a lot of time in one spot, like a home office or a mobile setup in a camper, that little convenience can replace a whole wall outlet and a tangled cable mess. What about the electric leather upholstery? It's a synthetic leather that looks sleek under indoor lighting and, unlike genuine leather, it doesn't require any special cleaning products. A quick wipe with a damp cloth removed a spill from a coffee mug without leaving a stain. However, after a week of heavy use, the surface did start to show a faint sheen in the areas where my elbows rested most often. That's a typical trade-off for budget synthetic leather. It holds up well for the first few months but may lose its fresh look if you're constantly leaning into it. So, who should seriously consider this recliner? If you're living in a small apartment, a dorm room, or an RV where floor space is at a premium, the folding backrest and compact footprint make it a logical choice. If you have limited mobility and appreciate the ease of a button press to recline, the motorized function is a genuine quality of life upgrade. And if you like having a charging station right at arm's reach while you binge watch or work, the USB ports add tangible value. On the flip side, skip it if you're looking for a high-end leather experience that will stay pristine for years, or if you need a recliner that can operate.